We are waiting until we have just a few more people in here and then we'll begin. Okay? And we're talking about past lives and future lives and whether or not that's actually a real thing. I've had that question in a few private sessions in the past week, and I know that Outlander is ready to start with their new series. So that talks about time travel, that talks about reincarnation, it talks about whether or not that's actually possible. So let's just wait for a few more minutes or moments and see what we have. So we are almost ready. Again, the Outlander series that's ready to begin is Blood of My Blood. I've been watching since pretty much the beginning, but it's ironic that this is actually the topic that is coming up in various readings. Is this a hoax? Is this something real? Is reincarnation like a real thing? Are we just deluding ourselves? What is this? Okay, we're almost ready. And if you have any questions about how this actually works, this is the time to ask me. I will explain about past lives and future lives and why it pretty much looks the same to me. If you go on my website at carlabarron.net and you actually type in the search bar there, you have to scroll down a little bit and you put past lives. You will see the other testimonials that deal with that topic. When I have looked at past lives, it wasn't something I was taught. I was raised Roman Catholic, so, that pretty much didn't exist. So I started like actually seeing this phenomenon when I was working on paranormal type investigations. That's when I first started looking at, do we have past lives? And is reincarnation possible? And I know from myself that I have certain abilities that I was not technically taught. So I think that in light of that, I just knew what to do. I just knew how to do certain things in a psychic way. And I know for a fact that this is not my only lifetime. So, I didn't really talk about it. I just kept that quiet. And then I started doing readings. And a lot of the health issues with people and like scars that are on their body when they're born or certain traumatic events that have occurred throughout the lifetime, that tends to be, something I'll look at. I'll look to see if this is a past life reference. It's not something I go around talking about all the time, but I know of some cases, and there's a lot of, technical information out there where there are children who have never spoken other languages that are all of a sudden fluent in a language that they have never been exposed to, or they know certain details about various people that they have never met. They couldn't possibly have met. And then the parents are curious and they want to know what's going on. So I've been involved with this since actually my television career starting. When I was on ABC Primetime, I actually was on 2 segments, and then the 3rd segment was about reincarnation. And it was about a little boy who was a pilot. And he was referencing a past life as a pilot. And there was so much detail there. I believe it was in San Diego, around that area. Okay. So, that's fine. That's a story. But I went further, and there are some people that are hypnotherapists that claim they can take you to a past life, and others that work in the dental industry, and they claim that if they put you under, they can take you into a past life. I'm not totally sure that's right, but okay. But in my experience, what I'm being shown looks to be the same time frame as the present. And when I look 100 years into the future, it looks the same to me. It's not even, there's no technical difference between what I'm looking at today and something that is occurring 100 years from now or 100 years in the past. There's no more energy that I have given to it, or, any type of digging that I've done. A lot of these readings that I do are first time readings. I've never even talked to these people before. So I allow it to come through as if it's present day. The only reason I can tell it's in the past is by what they're wearing. Some of the clothes are definitely not 2025. And I can tell by what they're wearing. I look at their feet. I look at their clothing. I look at the style of clothing. I look at, their speech, what they're talking about. And I can get a roundabout idea where that's coming from. As far as the future timeline, yes, I have been able to go into the future 100 years from now. I can see it the same because I trained myself to look at it the same as I would in a past life. Many times when I look at past lives or future lives, it's triggered by something where there's a need to know. And if we don't fix something today, in today's present timeline, this alternate future will happen. That's where free will comes in. Somebody was asking me, does this actually happen? Are there psychics that can actually see this? Well, like I said, if you go on my website and you type in past lives, there are a number of testimonials from readings where I ventured into that area. I was able to detect certain triggers that happened because in the past life, they were exposed to a certain trauma. They didn't say a word to me. They didn't say what the situation was usually. And I just saw this and I said, does this relate to you in some way? If I go into the future and I see a future lifetime, it's because a lot of times the souls that you encounter in this lifetime, you're wondering if you're going to see them again. You're wondering if those family members or those group karma members are going to show up in the future lifetimes with you. And of course they will. If you're it's called a role. If you're playing a role, this goes through multiple lifetimes until you cycle off that particular role. So those same players, those same individual souls, they'll come back as different things. They'll come back as, brother, sister, father, mother, best friend, mentor, your boss, somebody you met for 5 seconds on a bus. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but those souls will come back in when you need to trigger a certain lesson. And group soul karma is actually very real. You'll see those same souls again. Unless there's, that one soul has cycled off and they're restricted from coming into your present lifetime. That's the only time I've seen it where, like, one soul that's sort of like an outcast doesn't get allowed back in because they broke the rules or they did something they weren't supposed to do, and they need to take more time to review that lifetime and see what's going on. But a lot of times, health issues or a mental state or mental imbalance or psychological trauma that you can't explain, like a PTSD that never happened in this lifetime, but you're experiencing this at night when you go to sleep. I've had a lot of people have this happen. So people can say, oh, it doesn't exist. I was taught in the religion I was raised, Catholic, that this is a sin. You can't think about this. This is our only lifetime. We're not allowed to think about that. But I know for a fact this isn't my only lifetime. There are too many things I know how to do, and just I know how to do without being taught. It's just second nature. I just know how to do it. I have flashbacks to other lifetimes where it's not always in a dream state either. I see myself there. And a lot of times, that's why they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. So when there are pictures of your eyes and how they appear in this lifetime, many times the eyes are exactly the same in the other lifetimes. They rarely change. That's how you're able to be recognized by other souls in that lifetime. Because they look at the eyes and they know that's you. That's you. That's the person I knew before. You're in a different body. You might even be a different sex. You may be male versus female. You may have other things, but there's a certain look. There's a certain attitude. And while you're experiencing this role, it's called a role. This takes numbers of lifetimes to go through that role. So I know for me personally, I have been a whistleblower and the person that works behind the scenes and uncovers all the nonsense and all the lies and all the treachery and all the stuff. That's been me. No one knows it was me because I'm very careful not to get caught. That was me. Every lifetime, I have some element of that in that lifetime. I've never experienced a lifetime where I was not that person until I cycle off this role that I'm playing, that I'm uncovering a bunch of nonsense. That's who I am. So people wonder, oh, that's like a load of crap. You're not gonna live other lifetimes than this one. Once you die, that's it. My own father said that to me before he died. He said, I had my first heart attack, and then, I said, what did you see? And he said, honestly, Carla, I saw nothing. I saw no one. I saw nothing. It was just dark. And the thing is that they'll be shown when they're ready to see it. And then, of course, when he actually died, I was there. And I talked about that in a previous podcast. I believe it was called Signs. And I talked about the fact that we're sitting on a court, marble bench somewhere we had never been. And I'm pointing out to him that he crossed over. And I told him before he died, I said, you're going to need me. And he said, no, no, there's nothing like that on the other side. I'm a doctor. I'm a man of science. I don't believe in that. And I said, I don't care. When you need me, I'll be here. And I just laughed at him and I took him to dinner. And it was the last time I saw him before he died. So I remember when he died, it took him 3 days to know that he did cross over. And then we were sitting on this marble bench in a courthouse, and I couldn't figure out why, but I explained that in the other podcast named Signs. And I was shown that was it. And he didn't even say goodbye to me. He just walks towards his mother. And I said, you see that woman over there standing in the doorway? And there's a bunch of light behind her. I said, do you see that? And he said, oh my God, that's my mother. And his mother died when he was 15. And she died of cancer. And he walked towards her. And I'm like, well, goodbye. He didn't even say goodbye to me. And the thing is that doing the work I do, I'm never hurt by such a thing. I'm like, hey, we'll chat soon. Like, stop in when you actually know what's going on. And of course, I've been talking to him the whole time. And I explain why we're in a courthouse in that episode on, you can go on the listening platform and see. It's called Signs. So all I'm saying is that, does reincarnation happen? Of course it does. There is no way that one life would encompass all of the things that we need to see during that role. Some souls are actually higher level, you know, uh, they are they're spiritually vibrating at a higher vibration, and they are known to lead massive groups of souls into, a certain enlightenment. They need to see what's going on. They need to learn, you know, the next step, where we're going next. They need to progress. There would be no reason to be born here on this planet unless we're learning something, guys. I mean, we're not here just to suffer or just to go through a lifetime and say, oh, okay, that's it. And that's the end of it. Of course, that's what I was taught when I was young. I was taught by the nuns and the priests that this is how it is. And even then, I was like, I don't think so. But I didn't say anything because I was trying to get like A's in my class. And I was like, I didn't say anything. But I knew then. I knew when I was 5 years old that this isn't how it works. But I just let them say whatever and teach me however they needed to teach me. Of course, I studied every religion after that, um, because I knew that that was just their way of looking at it. And I'm like, okay, fine. So as we look, you know, are there other lifetimes beyond this lifetime? I can tell you with 150,000% certainty there is. I have no doubt in my mind. It has nothing to do with anything I've said before. It's just the stuff I've seen for people and the clothing they're wearing and what's going on. There is no way that this was the only lifetime for them. I know with me, when I have seen myself, I saw myself in Paris during the burning of Paris. And I was part of the revolution there too. I was working behind the scenes in the palace. I actually got myself in there and I saw myself and I saw what I looked like. And let me just tell you a few things. Okay. So I saw myself there and I was actually looking at that going, that's not me, but it was my eyes. So I knew it was me. And then I saw what I looked like and I'm like, oh my God, my breasts are so big. And that was the first thing that I saw. I was a woman in that lifetime, but I was working in secret. I was a spy and I was in there working on behalf of those that were part of the revolution. I was part of the burning of Paris, and I was so down with that whole thing. And I remembered looking at myself going, I don't care what I look like because this is going to get me in the palace. And it did. And I remember just walking through, I was at some sort of party, some sort of gathering. And I remember gathering intel. And I was just talking to various people because I needed locations. And every male that I talked to was very happy to just divulge whatever it was and tell me, various locations that they were planning on striking. And I needed that for some reason. And I was bringing it back to my group. I remembered when the fires began, I smelled the smoke. I mean, it was so vivid. And we all ran from this one building, and I almost didn't make it out. Um, but I remember that that mission was accomplished, and we did what we needed to do. We brought back the intel to the appropriate parties, and, you know, the rest was history. But I was part of trying to make things better. This seems to be the current theme with me that in each lifetime that I am born, I am looking at ways to elevate whatever that particular society is, or the government, or the truth, or whatever it is. I'm not part of some cult. I don't care. I don't subscribe to like other people's crazy this and that. I just know what I see. And this is what I saw. And then there were other lifetimes where I saw for sure where I was and what I was doing. And I know that I've worked with law enforcement before. And I would have a sense of humor about it. Like, oh my God, these people are so stupid. I am going to totally pull the wool over everybody's eyes and I'm going to get in. I saw certain lifetimes where I was just doing it just to see if I could do it. But it was all in the name of trying to establish some sort of, this is right and this is wrong and you guys need to stop. So, where there was a sense of, I had another psychic who actually read me once, who I won't name, but it was a fairly well-known medium, who said that I had lived the life as Eugene Vidocq. And Vidocq lived in Paris, was sent to prison twice, and broke out of both of the prisons, sort of laughing at the whole thing, going, oh my God, that was so easy, and doing it like a master of disguise. The funny thing is that, Vidocq, Eugene Vidocq, actually also wrote a book, his memoirs. I read some of it. I haven't read the entire book yet. I bought it on Amazon thinking, this is too weird, right? Like 100 years ago, I wrote a book as someone else, but I read certain passages and I'm like, oh my God, that's so much something I would say. So I'm saving that for like a weekend where I'm by myself, and I'm just going to read the book all the way, front to back. I'm just going to read it. And this is apparently a book that I wrote in my other lifetime as Eugene Vidocq. But the only reason I bought it was because the passage that I read was so much something that I would say today. I mean, it was uncanny how exact it was. And I thought, okay. So it's just like a fun project I'm going to save for another weekend. And I don't know when that weekend's going to be. I'm just going to read the book front to back and I'm just going to know. But it's not just about being somebody famous. I mean, a lot of times you're going through the role because you have to learn certain lessons. So it's not always a famous person you're going to be, but you will experience the lifetime in the same role with the same eyes, and you'll have the same attitude, and you'll be recognizable by how you are. Your personality will be very similar from each lifetime to lifetime. Like anyone that knew you in that lifetime is going to know you in a future lifetime just by your attitude and how you are and what you say and what you choose to believe and what you choose not to believe. They're going to know who you are. They're just going to know. They're going to know as soon as they see you. So when somebody says, I know you, when they look at you and it's like this past life experience where they know you, they recognize you, it's because, number one, in past lives you're given the option, and I've never seen it where you don't take the option, where you set up a trigger phrase or a trigger event where those souls or those two souls actually know what that secret is. So it's either a word that you say or a phrase or the event itself. And you actually set that up ahead of time and you go, okay, this is going to be our code. This is going to be the thing. And you're going to recognize it because this will be said. How many times do people meet each other in the lifetime where something's so familiar and they're like, oh my God, I've heard that before? And that's the reason, because you set it up ahead of time as your catchphrase, as the thing that, okay, when I come back, this is what I'm going to say. This is what's going to happen. This is the type of event it's going to be. And that's how you'll know it's me. And the eyes are almost exactly the same in each lifetime. Each lifetime is very similar. You're just going through different facets of the same role. You're there to learn something, you're also there to contribute. You're contributing to the records in that role as that person, as that soul. So sometimes it alters history. Yes, it does. Sometimes it's just regular life and people having a family and children and whatever. It's nothing major. Not everyone can be a famous person in each lifetime. There's a lot that goes into that. First of all, you have to have the type of soul that is willing to take on that responsibility where you're in charge of a whole bunch of people and influencing and impacting a great number of people on a large scale. Not every person is equipped to do that. Not every soul is equipped to do that. When I have looked in future lifetimes and I've seen various things that are happening, a lot of times the future lifetime, it will depend on what our decisions are now, whether or not that becomes a thing. Um, and that's hard to explain to people that don't know what that means. But what that means is it has, it actually it depends on choices that you've made, and that will alter history and that will alter the timeline. And then that future lifetime will emanate from that lifetime and be in that form. But sometimes people make different choices. They're not ready, they're not capable, they get afraid, they're not ready to do the lessons that they agreed to do before they enter. So that's the only time where the future timeline gets altered. I can see it based on today with what the energy is now and what's happening now. This is 90% what the future timeline is going to be. That 10% is if somebody just goes off the rails and does something they're not supposed to do. And you have to account for that because this earth plane is very much about that. It's very much about free will. That's what throws a wrench into the works. You don't know what's going to happen. But that's what makes my job exciting is that I can go in there and I can look, all right, today, if everything remains the same on that path, then this is the future 100 years from now. If not, it changes sometimes slightly or sometimes in a major way, depending upon what the agreement was. So people say, oh, well, you're a psychic and you work on crime scenes. How come you can't see, like, how come you can't solve it right there and then? Well, that free will aspect is one of the reasons. Because sometimes it's not meant to solve with just some random psychic coming and saying, hey, this is what's happening. What would we learn by just that? By just me coming in saying, hey, this person did it, this is how they did it, and done deal. Well, you guys don't learn anything by that. Then you think of me as some sort of god and I'm somebody to be worshiped, and that's not how it's supposed to go. Sometimes it has to be where other elements are in place to weave into the solution and the final ending of presenting that answer. That's why. We're shown breadcrumbs. We can see certain things about it, but then we hand it over to somebody else to go investigate. If that said investigator doesn't do their job, they're lazy, they don't want to do it, they don't believe in psychics, they think we're full of shit, whatever it is, I don't care because, I did my part. But if they decide to drop the ball, that's on them. That's why sometimes it takes another turn where multiple individuals contribute their piece of the puzzle, and then we see what's going on. It's not just crime scenes, it's anything. It's the government, it's the state of the world, it's what's happening with various individuals who are feeling like they're above and beyond any type of following the rules, and they just break them because they can, and having a lot of money, having a lot of power, controlling various factions. The way governments are set up right now in 2025, this is what's happening. So we have to be prepared with plan B, plan C, just in case that happens. I've always been that person that's like, I never believe it's going to be like what I'm seeing today. I am always prepared with, okay, I already know I have to go in and get intel and see what's really going on. And then we have to expose. That's the only way these people are going to learn. And then that happens. I don't care if I get credit for it. That's what's weird. I really don't care. I do a lot of this in secret. Um, and I don't seem to really care in various lifetimes whether or not I got the credit for it. I was just the person that knew how to do it. So I did. All right. I need to know if you guys have any questions, because I know that this is a lot of information about different things, about how it works with past lives, future lives, and whether or not that was even a real thing, or people were just talking about it because it was something new. So if you want to ask me anything, this is the time to ask. I just want you to know that, yes, past lives exist. And, you know, are we all cycling off? When like I said in other podcasts before, some people are like, oh, I'm so tired. I want this to be my last lifetime. I don't want to do this again. It's like, I'm sorry, but you're coming back, and you may not come back when you want to, but you are coming back. So, you know, just because you're tired is not an excuse to not have reincarnation. You come back, maybe you take a lifetime of rest. There are some lifetimes that you sign on for because you just need a break. You just need a break from all the drama, and you just need a lifetime where you're being loved, and you're seeing nature, and you're outdoors, and you're just feeling loved. You have a nice family, everything is nice, and then you die. So sometimes you choose a lifetime where everything is nice and even. But if you're going through a certain role or a certain path, what I've noticed and what I've deduced from all the thousands of readings that I've done is that you go in that same role, but you're just taking a slightly different tack. You're just going in, you're looking at it from a different angle. And that's why you go through what is called a role. And you play that role until it cycles off. That usually encompasses I don't know. It could go up to 20, 30 lifetimes. You're in that same role. It depends on how long it takes you to get through it. And if you mess up, if you have to come back and do it again, um, it's usually about that. So I really don't care if people think I'm full of whatever, because I've actually seen this. I've seen other lifetimes. I've told people about them. It relates to certain, number one, certain trauma or certain phobias that they have, certain health issues that they were born with. And it's like a direct correlation to the past lifetime. It doesn't have to be the the lifetime that was just prior to this one. It could be one that's like 3 lifetimes ago, but you never addressed it. So now you came in and you're trying to address that particular one because you think you're ready. So it doesn't have to go in order, but it does have to be done. People think they can skip over these steps. I've got news for you. It doesn't work that way. You have to go through the whole thing. You can't skip classes, you can't skip lessons, you can't skip the whole thing. You can take a break. They give you a chance. Your guides will come in and give you a chance to take a break. But you don't get that too often. The thing is that you're usually going to be the same personality in that same role. That's one of the markers. That's how they're going to recognize you in the future lifetime. The souls that were with you then, they know that's your mark. They know that's you because you act the same. You've got the same stamp, you've got the same energy. Sometimes you even say it the same way, but the eyes are very telling. Your eyes are very much the windows to the soul, and people know because of your eyes. They come in, they see you, they know. They know that's you. And, you'll, sometimes you'll come in and, that's what's so funny to me is that people say, oh, well, they fight the idea of this whole thing because of organized religion, or I wasn't taught that way, or this or that. I wasn't taught that way either. But then I was shown what it was, and I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Was I a witch in a past life? Absolutely, for sure. Probably more than one, because I kind of like being that role. I really didn't care if people thought this or that. I never felt lonely. I always felt like this is what I was meant to do. So, was I put to death for it? Yes. Because I was smarter than them? Yes. Did I care? Well, maybe at the point of death I cared, but during the life I was like, no, I didn't care because I was helping a bunch of people. So that seems to be the common thread with me in this role that I'm living. I just hope some of this makes sense to you guys. As far as future lives, we have them. Until this planet disintegrates, we have them. But, there is cycling off to other planets and other types of existence as a soul. So that's a whole other podcast. But future lifetimes on this planet, we haven't destroyed everything yet. So hopefully we get a clue at some point and we deploy some of that, hopefully. Um, but as far as future lifetimes here, I don't think people are ready for how transparent everything is going to get. I think we all got used to how hidden everything was and how discreet and conservative. I think we all just never realized that it could be so drastically different. And that's coming. In the next 100 years, what we see is government now, what we see is world nations, what we see is how we resolve issues by going to war and people fighting each other and killing each other, and like that's not going to exist anymore. I don't think anybody understands that that's how it's going to be. Because I think at some point between now and 100 years from now, we actually figure out that we don't want to blow ourselves up and this planet is worth saving, and we should probably start looking into ways to do that. All right, if nobody has any questions, I'm going to sign off, but I just need to know. Anybody have any questions? Anything you didn't understand from what I just said? I mean, again, it's my point of view, but my point of view has been pretty dead on for a lot of people. So, instead of writing a book or doing that type of thing, I'm doing these podcasts instead because I think people will listen to a podcast more than they're going to sit and read a book. I mean, I've had a lot of publishers come to me and ask me to author various books, and I think it's easier this way. I think it's better if you hear directly from my voice how I see it working. That's why I chose this. So I hope that at least one or two of you is getting something from everything I'm saying and everything I'm trying to explain from my point of view and how I see it and how it's worked in all the thousands of readings I've done. And yes, it's been thousands. And, I hope I get to do this until the last day that I take a breath because I love what I do. So I am not seeing anybody requesting, so I'm going to sign off. But I hope you guys like this. And if you want, you can comment either here on Twitter X or on YouTube. Those are the only two places where you can comment. And just tell me what you think or your own personal story about past lives and things that you know to be true that were shown to you and you know for a fact it's true that you lived in this other lifetime. And you can give examples, you can make it as long as you want, because that type of stuff I love reading. I love when you guys come back and tell me your stories. So anyway, thanks for joining the live today, those that did, and I will have up the platforms within the hour. And I wish you guys a good night. Happy full moon to everybody out there. Bye bye.